I just realized I've been muted this whole time. I think that we need to bring back the word bozo, though. It's a good word, right? Bozo. It's just gotta. Okay, Daniel, no, I'm doing it, man. I don't care. Sorry. My producer's looking at me like, well, you're gonna do the bozo thing? Are you stupid? He obviously didn't want me to do this one. Yes, I'm doing the bozo thing, Daniel. And you're stupid. Leave me alone. It's my show. I wanna do the bozo thing. So I'm gonna do the bozo thing. Anyway, bozo's a good word, right? And frankly, I'm sick of thinking up different synonyms for all these bozos running around the internet acting like bozos these days. They're bozos. We should call them what they are, you know? And you know who the biggest bozos are? Our government. Primary bozos. Bozos primarios. I'd call them useless bozos, but it's kind of worse than that. They're bigger bozos than the biggest bozo you've ever met. They're literally legislating things against the interests of the American people. And it's been that way since before I was born. And it's been that way all my life. I still remember when I was a kid how outraged my pops and all his buddies were about NAFTA. NAFTA was a tipping point in this sort of death spiral these bozos in the government seem intent on putting this country on. Of course, we can't talk about those bozos without talking about the bozos they work for and the people they actually legislate on behalf of, right? The financial cartels and the military industrial complex and all the other bozos that seem to have attached themselves to the necks of the American working class like a big bozo-shaped leech. As they financialized the economy, the bottom of it just plain fell out. Money became basically fake so they could produce endless credit and keep their investment portfolios ballooning, turning the whole thing into a big old bozo-run Ponzi scam. Oh, and you know our government has sent over $84 billion to literal Nazis. Nazis! And that's just what they report. We could assume it's a lot more than that, especially in, things like secondary profit sources and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, our economy's falling apart. 78% of us struggle paycheck to paycheck, according to a report from Forbes that I recently read. Our infrastructure is falling apart, and we can barely get from point A to point B without some bozo butting his big, stupid bozo face in the mix, trying to milk us for more money to do it. Seriously. I'm going to be driving to Chicago in a couple weeks for the first Congress of the Communist Party. And you know what I'm worried about? You know what I'm worried about? If there's going to be over an hour of traffic because one of the roads on the way there is falling apart, like what happened to me last time I drove there. Meanwhile, Communist China's zooming ahead of everybody, lapping us as we're, choking on their dust like the bozos we are. They basically connected their entire landmass via high-speed rail. Not a bozo in sight. And I'm sitting here watching all that going, man, how awesome would it be to just hop on the high-speed train to Chicago? Read a book for a little bit, then get off and get to business. We used to have infrastructure in this country, We used to make things here. And that's another thing that grinds my gears now that I think about it. How we just seem to let these bozos program us to ignore problems like that. Our standard of living is collapsing. It's collapsing. And we all have the internet now. And if we care, we can do the work and look for what actually causes things to happen. We can find who the bozos are. Yet we have, in the 21st century, neo-Nazis blaming everything on religions and ethnicities. And the new one they gave those bozos, like it's all Haiti's fault for some reason. Like that's not the most obvious and ridiculous lie ever, is our government's geopolitical position against Haiti. And what's happening there right now should tell anyone who isn't a bozo with even a modicum of common sense. So here's my advice. Don't be a bozo. Think for yourself. And don't listen to some bozo telling you that, thinking exactly what they tell you to think is thinking for yourself. It's not. It's being a bozo.
Hi, Sheriff.
it would not be a Noah show if I did not screw up the intro. I misplaced my cards on there, and I started playing the other video too soon. Anyway, I want to introduce everyone to the man behind the scenes who makes it all happen, Daniel Gutierrez, the best producer I've ever met. What's up, Daniel? How are you today, brother?
Hey, what's up, brother? I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking. How's it
Awesome.
going how's it going in Cleveland?
It's going well, except I've had to deal with quite a few bozos lately, as
Yeah.
you may or may not have been able to
Yeah,
tell.
yeah, bozo this, bozo that.
Well, bozos abound, apparently.
We live in an era of bozos, that's for sure.
We live in a bozo prime world right now. Uh, I don't know. There's a lot. I mean, speaking of bozos, the ex-president Donald Trump recently got shot at again, and they got this bozo. They were telling us, did it. It was a wild card. Have you been following that?
Yeah, luckily, Twitter and the internet was right on top of this, right on top of this guy, and he had just a very curious and bizarre social media presence.
Right, and it's funny because they scrubbed it, right? But you can't scrub anything off the internet. Who do these bozos think they are? Um,
Exactly.
sorry, I can't help myself. But I'm seeing all this stuff. This guy was literally organizing with and secretly bringing American mercenaries to fight alongside Nazis in Ukraine, right? And I mean, he did a whole appearance on Newsweek a while back, talking about how much he loved these Nazis and how great they are. And then he ends up taking a shot at a former president, which is just kind of a wild commentary on where we are right now. There have been two attempts on the life of the same former president right now. If you think they're legitimate attempts, which they may not be, who knows? But it's a wild time. I don't know.
Yeah, extremely wild. This guy, he almost looks like if you imagine like what like a NAFO troll would look like in real life, like he's kind of like the caricature of that. It's
It,
kind of wild.
he really
He's
is.
like a real life. He's like a real life NAFO troll.
Right, and he's like this skinny little nerd, and he was like it's dyeing his hair. It was what it's unreal to me. Like people wonder why I'm trying to bring the word bozo back, and it's because like we live in this like sort of nightmare joke apparently these days, where anyway. Good comment from Bad Wolf here, who says that screenshot doesn't allow for scrubbing anymore. Very true. Not to mention the Wayback Machine and all that kind of stuff. It's crazy how things stick around the internet. And you know what's funny about that? This is kind of off topic. People will look at things from 20 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever it is and use it in cancel campaigns against people now. Now, I'm not saying this guy wasn't still a Nazi. He clearly was, right? And to me, if this is a legitimate attempt on the life of former President Trump, it's because he didn't consider him pro-Nazi enough, because he's had some, I mean, frankly, worryingly mild anti-war rhetoric about wanting to stop the drive towards World War III. But to get back on my, out in the weeds thing, I'm saying like people use stuff from years and years ago on people in cancel campaigns. I recently saw something against myself that I don't even remember doing. I was like 25 years old. And they're like, do you still believe this? I'm like, this was clearly like some stupid Family Guy reference, from over 15 years ago. What are you, stupid? Bozo, get out of here. I don't know. Anyway, I'm back. I'm feeling good. No more COVID. Thank you so much to Carlos for taking over in my absence, and thank you for running him through the ropes brother. I don't know what I'd do without you here, man.
Yeah, no, it's been great. It's been fun. I think the response has been really good. The last few call-in shows have been really exciting.
Yeah,
So
I saw Eddie and Carlos do one while I was still a little sick. That you guys were fighting the echo bozos the whole time, huh?
yeah, that was a little bit of a complicated one. We never did like two people, like two different, kind of hosts calling in and like having everybody integrate through the Discord and stuff. So we do have to troubleshoot that a little bit, but
Yeah,
we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
I was listening while I was at work today, and I just kept like bashing my head against the wall, like, dude, just mute
Yeah.
yourself on the StreamYard, problem solved. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
it doesn't matter. Okay, real quick, Ronald Toran, it's a call-in show, buddy. If you have an issue or you think I'm crazy or wrong, call in and try to tell me all about it. Don't hide behind anonymous keyboard nonsense like some kind of wiener or bozo. By the way, I want to bring back the word wiener too.
That's a good one.
There's a pinned comment in the chat that'll give you access to the Discord. That's how you call in, kiddo.
Yeah,
All
come on,
right.
guys. Like, no more ankle biting. Like, the whole reason why we do this program and the whole reason why we're up here on this platform is to like actually talk about these issues. Like, if you actually have an ideological problem with what we're talking about and what we're working on, get on here on the show and talk to us about it.
Boom.
That's what it's for. That's what it's for.
Very, very much so. And well, hopefully, Ronald will find whatever manhood that he has and give us a call.
Hope so.
And we'll hear from him and as many other people as want to call in right after this.
High Sheriff Hazard is a hard man to be. High Sheriff is his only plan. He digs through pockets, takes what he can, for he's High Sheriff Hazard. He caught me one evening and here's what he said. You look like a Russian, you look like a red. And if you're fond of your skin and your head, beware the High Sheriff of Hazard. The answer is simple, the answer is clear. We all get together, ain't got nothing to fear. We throw the old bastard right out on his ear. Farewell to High Sheriff Hazard.
But then, but we got to cut.
Wow, I love that song. I love that song. Redbox asks what song it is. Good question. It's called The High Sheriff of Hazard. Fantastic, fantastic song, right? It gets me every time. But no, I go through this sometimes and it's funny. People seem to talk a big game when they're behind an anonymous account on the internet, right? You know how many like random neo-Nazis and other silly nonsense I deal with on Twitter and other social media, and they're all like, "Oh, Marxism, so stupid. You like murder, blah 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 blah," right? But then when it comes time for them to actually put their money where their mouth is and have a conversation where who actually knows what they are talking about becomes readily apparent, surprise, surprise, literally not a one of them have called into this show yet. We got this guy like screaming about a phone number. No, it's on Discord, Wiener. Discord. All right. We don't have all night to wait for this guy to stop making excuses, though, unfortunately. Let's kick it all off. I know we got some calls waiting already. And you guys have probably heard enough of me ranting and raving by now, right? So who do we got first, Daniel? Oh, it's John. What's up, brother? How are you? Give me a second. Give me a second. Daniel, I muted you on the streamer. Okay, great. All right. What's up, brother? How are you? It's good to hear you again. Okay. Why I may want to quit using a drill after a while. I don't. This man knows me. Okay. Why the wood fell asleep? Let me think. I got nothing. Why did the wood fall asleep? Jesus. Oh, that was a bad one. Even I was like, oh. All right. I don't know. You know, every time I think of planking, my wife and I get like very into bad TV, right? We got very into the show The Office for a while. There's an episode where they're all doing planking. It was like a viral thing on the internet for a minute. And the one character that's like my favorite on the whole show, Dwight, um, he just goes around pushing them all off of whatever they're planking on. And it's absolutely hilarious. I love it. But anyway, okay, so we got the dad jokes out of the way. What's up? What do you got for us tonight? Oh, hold on. Give me a second. Give me a second. Give me a second. I am the dumbest guy alive. Everybody's complaining that the caller is muted. He's not muted. I'm just stupid, and I could have sworn I'd set this up for Daniel to do earlier, but I didn't. There we go. Now people can hear you. I apologize.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, everybody's like, this guy, like he's going schizo. He's just talking to himself. I am so sorry, guys. It wouldn't be Noah show if I didn't screw something up. Jesus Christ. Who's the bozo now, right? All right, so give us one more dad joke for the audience.
I would talk more about acoustics, but I really hate to sound off.
He knows me. What can I say? Okay, so right. You had a question about sort of communist history in America, right?
Yeah. Well, the question would largely be, I know we have kind of the high profile movements, like say during the labor wars, the domestic front on the Cold War, over facing the surveillance state.
Yeah.
What about some of the lesser known like examples of the communist and earlier socialist and union movements in the U.S. that most people off the street might not be as aware of?
Okay.
What are the best lessons to learn from those groups?
There's a few. So the one that let me give you a positive one and a negative one. Okay. Uh, one of the positive ones, William Z. Foster, one of the most heroic Americans in the entire history of the country. I mean, this guy fought his entire life to improve the conditions of the working class. Was literally basically on his deathbed and came back to the party to save it from liquidation. But what I want to talk about is very, very early on in his career when he's part of what was called the Profintern, which was um, sort of like the Comintern, but for trade unions, right? And he was working with the steel union at the time. And this is back during the days of Jim Crow. Now, one of the go-to tactics of the bosses back then was to bring in black scab workers against the unionized white workers to break their strikes, right? It worked out perfectly for them because they could prey upon the precarity of the black working class, and they could set working class people against each other rather than have them work together, right? Because you got these white workers who, they all they know is I'm sorry, give me a second here. There we go. Perfect. You got these white workers who all they know is, these black workers are coming in to scab their strike. And you got these black workers who are like, well, these racist white workers hate us anyway. Why do we care? Right? And it was a recipe for disaster. Over and over and over again, the bosses were able to use race and the color line to manipulate us into fighting on their behalf against all of us, but not Foster, right? What did Foster do when they tried to use that tactic against him and his steel strike? First, he wrote to Gompers to tell him, because Gompers was in charge of the AFL at the time. Now, later on, Foster and Gompers did not get along. Foster actually straight up punched Gompers in the face in the middle of a union meeting once. But this is before all that, right? So without approval from the high office, what Foster did was went to the scab workers and said, look, this is what we think they're trying to do. They're trying to use you temporarily just as scab labor to break our strike, and then they're going to get rid of you. So why don't we do this instead? Join the union. We all fight together against the boss, and then you got the protection of the union. We'll make sure that you guys get hired full-time afterwards. And it worked. And that was one of the first integrated unions in the entire country. I think it was the second. The longshoremen, I believe, was the first. It saved the strike, and it began this generalized process of integrating unions. Now, the AFL and Gompers obviously were not big fans of this, which is why the Communist Party ended up building the CIO, which was basically at the time, I think it was 9 of the 11 unions were all red unions. They were communist unions, and they were specifically organized along anti-racist lines. Because as we all know, if we've been following the Midwestern Marx Institute, the struggle against the color line is the primary form our class struggle has taken in all of its history. So there's one story for you. There's our...
Yeah, that one was pretty metal.
Yeah, pretty metal. All right. Okay. So here's the second one. And this is the problem with dogmatism that we've had within the communist movement here throughout our history, right? And a lot of this happens organically. It comes through our general American pragmatism, right? Just something baked into who we are as a people. The old CPUSA, there is a famous black communist who sort of ends up going Maoist and ultra left, right? Named Nelson Peary. And I hear this story from some of the old heads, but he wrote about this in one of his books. I don't know. I've never. I think I only read one of his books, and it wasn't that great. He's a Maoist. What are you gonna do, right? But this is around the time that the Yugoslavs and the Soviets, their relationship is really starting to deteriorate, right? And Nelson begins looking into Tito and Yugoslav theory, and he's saying to the people in his club and his chapter, or district rather, I think this guy's on some revisionism. Like, this is revisionism, what I'm reading here from him. And they jumped down his throat. They were like, what? The Yugoslavs are our allies. How dare you say that? Who do you think you are? And then comes the passive aggressivity. You know what? Maybe the party isn't the right place for you. Don't you think you might be a little more comfortable just quitting so you could say these kinds of things in the open? Right? And that, to this day, people in the old party try to treat people like that. Anyway, this happens to him. He gets very dejected. A couple of days later, the new issue of the Daily Worker comes out. Big headline. Condemn Tito revisionism, says J.V. Stalin. And nobody seemed to remember yelling at Nelson about talking about Tito's revisionism. But they all took Stalin's line as soon as he said it. And that's because even at this early era, education had waned. One of the most important things for us to have is a Marxist worldview. When we have that, we can't fall into dogmatism. That's why we focus so much on education here at the Institute. But those were awesome, awesome questions, brother. Thank you so much for your call. You got anything else for us before we go?
Yes. What happens when you scare a tree?
It leaves?
You get petrified wood.
All right, get him out of here, Daniel.
I'll go leaf the scene.
All right. Red Maze, whoa, with the 20. Thank you so much. It says, excellent union story, very useful to explain class. Thank you. Thank you so much. We are a 100% people-funded institute. And right now, I want to be serious for a minute. Right now, we are facing, and I'm not being hyperbolic, we are facing increased repression from the state and attacks on our freedom of speech. Danny Shaw had his electronics stolen, had his phone and laptop being harassed by the FBI. You guys probably just saw my interview with Dan Kovalik. Same thing happened to him just recently. And if you don't think that this comes alongside increased algorithmic suppression, you are absolutely wrong. So right now, maybe you're shy, whatever, send a super chat if you can. Those really help. I'll make sure that we read all the super chats, super stickers, anything like that. If you want to donate maybe a little bit more, and you don't want YouTube to take, or Google really, to take all your money, patreon.com/MidwesternMarks. And if you ain't got it like that, that's fine. We count on every single one of you to like and share the stream. Seriously, if you're not sharing the stream, go share the stream. If you're in the party, consider this an order. Share every stream, not just mine, right? Carlos's, Eddie's, Danny's, Haz's. Share the streams. Again, increased repression. It is not a time to slack or think that stuff isn't important. Jesus, Ronald, if you have a complaint, call in the show, you wiener. It's a call-in show. Stop whining in my chat, Jesus. All right, back to business. What do we have next? I assume we have another caller, Daniel.
We sure do. We got Battle Cossack on the line. Battle Cossack, a friend of the Institute, long time community member, has some interesting thoughts and kind of feelings about where they're kind of at personally with their personal development and their kind of consciousness and stuff that they wanted to chat with you about, because they felt like you would get where they're coming from.
All right. What's up, Battle Cossack? Good to hear from you, brother.
Yeah, it's good to be back after 2 streams again. But yeah, it has been as good as it can get here.
Okay. So
Well,
what's up? What's on your mind tonight, brother?
Well, I've been thinking about a lot of development in my personal life regarding to like these like beliefs I got, and I'm kind of conflicted about my ideals because
Okay.
because since the start of the special military operation, I've been started to question about a lot about what I've been thought and my ideals. And I got to the point, and I got it to the point where I'm conflicted with these ideas. Like I want, you know, I want to keep, and I want to learn. I want to keep learning more about the world, and this. I'm conflicted, you know, about these two.
I got you. So okay,
different lifestyles.
let's what exactly is it that you think you're conflicted about? I heard you mention the Russian special military operation.
That was like the beginning of my transformation of when I started questioning a lot of what I've been taught. Like that was the moment I started like investigating and going and started investigating on my own this alternate media.
Good.
You know.
Okay. So this brings you into, you know, finding the Midwestern Marx Institute, beginning to learn Marxism, all that kind of stuff, right? Where are you at now? That are you sort of second guessing Marx? What exactly can I help you with, brother?
Yeah, it just so happens that before that I was like, you know, this internet, like I used to be this angry libertarian teen. I hated everything. I insulted everything. It was like it was like kind of like hateful times. It wasn't good. But I used to listen to a lot of right wing stuff.
It's a hard way to live. When you're
I used to like going a lot. Like trolling in social media and saying like awful things that I regret saying.
I get that's a really hard way to live. And I think that the sort of mainstream media institutions that propagate the narratives that sort of drive us into that kind of lifestyle, the Mercer cartel is known for that. Even the Coke cartel is like, they don't even think about what it does to the emotional state and psyche of individuals, which they claim to care about, that they send down this road when you're always angry and you're focused on hating things as a lifestyle. That's a really, really unhealthy way to live your life, you know?
Yeah, and it got to a point where I started like questioning this thing, because I used to I used to idolize these like right wing figures. Like in Argentina, we got like, you know, Milei.
Mhm.
I identify with him because he was talking against all these crooked politicians and stuff, and and then since I was like I was like in this hateful stage of my when I was a teenager, I was kind of hating everything. And I was kind of mentally mentally weak in the week, to the least. I was easily convinced, and now and then I got it, and I started questioning things
Good.
because well, one I was fantasizing about the thing that really got me here in Marxism. I think it was North Korea. Because one day it's like I started since I started like one day I started questioning a lot of things about this idea I got about North Korea. I mean, this like crazy place where people, their Kim Jong Un ban haircuts and they believe in unicorns and stuff. And then something happened. I started, wait, sounds too too cartoonish.
Ex-
What
it can't
it's kind of
possibly be real, right? You know how
yeah,
many people that look, I work with a lot of guys who would say they're libertarians. And one of the main ways that I help them undo the anti-communism is exactly what you went through, right? Like, how is this cartoon image you've been given even real? I mean, let's think about the you know, even they like to promote Yenmi Park all over those circles, right? She says
yeah.
such contradictory things. And one of the things that really that I remember pretty clearly about the lies about North Korea or Free Korea is they said that they changed the time zone in Free Korea because Kim Jong Un was a madman and he's an egomaniac who needed his own time zone, right? So I looked this up and I'm like, that sounds crazy. Nobody just, even the craziest of people, aren't changing time zones just willy nilly. That would make society not function properly, right? You wouldn't have the correct number of hours in the day, etc. And so I looked it up. You know what they'd actually done? So they'd had an
What?
unscientific time zone that the Japanese installed when they were occupying Korea, right? So that they would be on Japanese time. And the Free Koreans literally just changed it to the correct scientific time and called it Pyongyang time. Like the most like normal, like just completely bland kind of deal that you could possibly think of, you know? And so it's always stuff like that. And I'm glad you were able to just sort of see it on your own. You know, that's really hard for people to do when they don't have access to people that, you know, have already done that work.
Yeah, and yeah, and yeah, you can say that North Korea was like my beginning into this like more Marxist rabbit hole, and that got me well here joining Mr. Marx discourse and meeting a lot of nice people here that understand me, and then I got interacted. I feel like I've been it has helped me a lot develop, but also I started like this kind of ideas I started I started like conflicting in my head.
Hmm.
Like I want to believe here, and I want but also I want to be me, and some things and there's a lot of things I want to change, but I don't know. I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the mentals and the strength to do it. It's
Uh,
been and yeah.
so what you're saying is a little. It seems a little vague. So I'm not sure I get exactly what you're saying. Are you?
I don't know how to communicate properly because like English is not it's not
Yeah,
my
no,
my
I understand. I understand. I'm trying to sort of guess at where we're going. So are you saying you sort of need some direction on how to continue learning the Marxist worldview? Or
Yeah, like I like that. I wanted to keep like learning the Marxist worldview, but I also want to I also don't want to like lose a lot of I want to keep being me
right.
be me have
Look,
my
I can
like thoughts and
absolutely
stuff.
I can absolutely assure you that as you continue learning Marxism and sort of understanding how the world works through dialectical materialism, you as a person aren't going to change, right? You're still going to be you. It's not going to affect your opinions, the things you love and hate, etc. It's just going to give you a deeper understanding of how the world functions, how nature functions. And to do this, and I hate to like rush us, but we have other calls we need to get to, brother. To do this, I would recommend beginning, if you can enroll in the next basics of Marxism class that I'm going to be doing pretty soon here. But if you can't, begin by starting with write these down if you can, or come back later and sort of rewind and listen to them. Begin by reading a very, very short essay by Lenin called Three Sources and Three Components of Marxism. Then read Socialism, Utopian and Scientific by Engels. That was originally pulled from Anti-Düring, right? But it sort of ballooned out after that. After that, those are both very short. Socialism, Utopian and Scientific is short. Then Stalin has a great pamphlet called Dialectical and Historical Materialism. That will get you into reading Anti-Düring by Engels. So get those and you'll be in good shape of really beginning to understand the Marxist worldview. And don't worry, it's not going to change you, I promise. I've been studying this stuff for years and I'm still as much of a bozo as I ever was, right?
Yeah. I think that's one of the things I also being like being lied to about that communists have these communists are this different and
Yes.
and things like this and do these things and they're like different.
Oh, and that's the thing. Here's the thing. And this is why we always go to these original texts. Never take anyone's word for anything on the internet. Don't even take my word for it, right?
That's what they're doing.
Learn for yourself. And anyone who's telling you not to educate yourself, those are the people that you know you shouldn't be trusting. You are absolutely smart enough and capable of understanding this. And anytime you have a question, brother, while you're reading these, feel free to call in or hit me up an email. I'm always happy to help people learning. Like I make myself available for that. All right. We got to move on tonight because we're already at about the hour mark. But this is an awesome call, brother. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks to you, brother. Yeah. Basically, one of the first things I did was stop like believing in on random people on the internet because I used to like be affected by random comments on YouTube. But yeah,
right.
So I started getting out of that and started believing for myself, and yeah, I'm kind of improving in that.
No, that's what's up, brother.
But yeah, thank you. Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah. I'm gonna check out those books and
do so.
Probably, who knows? I'm gonna give it a check. Thanks.
My pleasure, brother. I'm glad we could help. Look, for everybody, And I tell this to people who tell me they're anti-communist all the time. I've been at this a while, right? I've been studying Marxism for longer than a lot of the people that talk about it have even been alive, right? That's not like some kind of brag. It's to explain that over 90% of what I see people talking about online, both for and against what they say is communism, over 90% of these people have no idea what they're talking about. None. The amount of dogmatism and empiricism and what Lenin would have called neo-positivist or neo-Kantian claptrap that masquerades as Marxism is overwhelming. And there's a material reason for that. There's a whole history behind the falsification of it and how the rise of the middle classes made room for liberals and to sort of take over what used to be the left. Oh man, Adboy, thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. Again, Holy People Funded Institute. All this kind of stuff helps us keep the lights on. It really does. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So the advice I give everybody is if you haven't learned it for yourself, I guarantee you, you have been met with some sort of distortion or another. There are people I've seen that have been reading Marxist stuff literally for years and read it all wrong because they don't get a good grasp of dialectical logic before they read it. So they take bits and pieces of theory of Marx and Engels and sort of apply it in order to confirm their preconceptions. And that isn't how learning takes place. Dialectical logic should be telling us that in the process of acquiring concrete knowledge, we are at the same time unlearning the abstract notions and half-formed thoughts that we had previously. That all of these abstractions are moments in the creation of what becomes us and having a concrete concept. And I like to get people up to the area I focus on in dialectics, which is the dialectics of abstract and concrete. And actually, it's funny. So any regular viewers probably know I've been working on my reproletarianization book for a while now, right? It's been years. And I mean, I've been studying this for maybe 8-9 years now, and I started writing the book a couple years ago. But I keep learning more and concretizing my ideas more. The first third of that book is clarifications on Marxism and the necessity of understanding what concretization means and how we go about ascending to the concrete in thought so that you understand the Marxist analysis of the two things I'm analyzing in the other 2/3 of the book, which is the creation of the American people, or the theory we call the American trajectory, and reproletarianization, or the death of the middle class. And you need that. And the sad fact is that a lot of what passes for Marxism in the US is just wrong. It's literally like neo-Kantian nonsense, empiricist views that haven't evolved past the 17th century. We're in the age right now when modern neuroscience is telling us what Marxists have known theoretically because of our more developed logic all along, that as our DNA writes us, we are also writing our DNA, that it is a reciprocal relationship that creates the concrete thing that we are, right? That cause becomes its own effect, becomes its own cause. And when you get that, that's when you really get Marxism. But I've been ranting and raving for long enough now. Who do we have next up, Daniel?
Hey, Noah. We've got Christopher, actually, ACP New York comrade, who wants to talk about immigration, some questions on Soviet policies on immigration.
Awesome. Let's do it. What's up, brother? How are you?
You're going to have to unmute yourself, Christopher.
Hey, Noah, what's up? Sorry, I was muted there.
No, quite all
Seems to be
right. How are you,
contagious.
comrade?
I'm doing well, man. Call from the New York City branch of the New York chapter of ACP.
Awesome. That's what's up. that's what I'll say to that one. That is what's up. What do you got? What do you got for us tonight, Christopher?
Yeah, well, in the wake of our probably future president bringing up some immigration issues in the debate the other night, it's been a hot topic. You know, Haas made a big post about immigration, talking to some bourgeois academic about this. And I don't know, I got involved in a conversation, and they were saying, you know, Lenin actually was very pro-immigration, which makes a lot of sense because they were staring down the barrel of a gun of like 100 years deficit in industrial development. So it seems like they would want to put as many people in jobs as possible. Contextually, I'm just kind of imagining that. So I was hoping that you could kind of like, I don't know, add some context to why Lenin may have had those views, and maybe some of the works where he discusses this, what his positions were on immigration at that time, and yeah.
So Lenin has actually very little to say on immigration. I mean, he talks about it a little bit, but it's in regards to after the revolution, sort of rethinking what the withering of the state means, right? Because they had some really, really high hopes for the revolution spreading everywhere. And that's the thing. So I read Haas's post was brilliant, by the way, and it's the sort of thing I've been saying for years. That the way we're taught to think about immigration, both in the sort of sense that this anti-communist leftist professor was saying, and in the sort of, you know, stereotypical conservative way, are wrong. And we're only able to take a very absolutist position on either one. But Lenin, what he was doing was realizing that their time frame for the withering of the state was too short, right? And it's actually Stalin, after he dies, who does a lot more work on the materiality of nations. And if you look into his stuff about linguistics and language that he wrote towards the end of his life, I think it's, I think it's in Collected Works 7, but don't quote me on that, where he answers a bunch of letters on this question that it seems that even after socialism begins being built, right, that nation states maintain their integral materiality. They maintain being nation states, just in a higher form than the bourgeois form, that are capable of cooperation rather than mutual antagonism based on the class interests of the ruling class. And so you had things like not really open immigration between Soviet states, for example, but ease of movement. They did this always in regard to seeking harmony between the nationalities, right? And that's really what Stalin focused on. And he was really good at it. And they did it in different ways, right? At some points, they would really promote the sort of native language of a given republic, right? And teaching that in schools and that identity. At other times, like when they're gearing up for the Nazis to invade them, they promote a united Soviet identity. And so that's the sort of dynamism that you know, a democratic centralist organization can give you. But it also has a deeper meaning theoretically of the unity of form and content, right? The content of the Soviet Union was this universal communist process, but it was taking the form of these different socialist republics within it. Does that make sense, or did I start rambling too much?
No. This is all good. This is all good. Making sense to me.
Excellent. Okay, good. I do want to say also in regards to Haz's post, I shared it myself because it was a great post. It was really long and in depth. This is how I have gotten almost all of my coworkers in a more anti-imperialist mindset, right? That when we focus on immigration here in the U.S., the ruling elites want us to sort of focus only on the problem as if the conditions that present it are ever present. Do we let everyone in and kumbaya and everybody's wages go down and blah, and just the financial cartels make out like bandits? Or do we militarize the border and it's those corporations that make out like bandits, right? There's no room for understanding what the problems are and what causes them, right? When I was a kid, I mentioned this in my opening rant, NAFTA had just gone through, and I remember my pops and all his buddies ranting and raving about NAFTA, right? It was destroying, I mean, it was already being destroyed, but it was really destroying our productive economy. And so all of these good, productive, union-protected jobs were getting shuttered here in the US, right? So hurting our working class here. And then spread out in different countries where they just hadn't gotten their class struggle to such a level yet, and they could, pay labor pennies on the dollar. At the same time, Mexico and NAFTA is a perfect example. At the same time, they sort of force the cartels in control of agricultural exports, which is basically Monsanto at this point, into Mexican markets. Mexico before this had a thriving small farm sector, millions and millions of people on small farms, and they would, sell their corn and soybeans, et cetera, right? Monsanto was able to undercut all of them, driving them off of their homes that they'd had for generations, sending a few of them into the new Harley plants and GM plants that went down there, working for pennies and cramped into the cities. But then what happens to the rest of the people, right? And if you look, it was only a year or two later when we had a immigration crisis coming from Mexico. There's always a real world connection to these things that we can look at and find the problem of. The ruling elites want us to, so I put it like this to my coworkers. Let's say that you have a brain tumor, right? The ruling elites are telling you, here, buy these ibuprofens. They'll handle your headaches. But those headaches are going to keep coming back so long as you have that brain tumor, right? Excuse me. The only real solution is to take out that brain tumor. And so the only real solution in this case is to stop destroying other countries. Only one way to do that, right, is the working class here to take the power. At this point, the financialization scams have gotten so abstract and so overwhelming, especially after 2008, when speculation becomes the primary mode of accumulation, that there's nothing else for them to do. That's why you see them getting more and more belligerent. They don't want war with Russia. They're forced into it in order to protect their class society, for instance. That's why the escalation happens, because they need the energy that their cartel sells to be given at a certain price point, right? Or the agriculture or whatever it is, so that investment continues and the debt keeps compounding on it. I know that's a lot to throw at you all at once, so I apologize. I hope I did a good enough job answering your question, though.
Yeah, very much. It provides a lot of context. Yeah, I definitely wanted to like. I think NAFTA is an important part of that context. For us in this day, and very different from what the USSR was. But that's interesting. I'll check out, see if I can find some of what Lennon said about that based on your recommendation. So thanks, Noah. I appreciate it, and I look forward to meeting you in a couple weeks in Chicago.
Absolutely, me too, brother. Thank you so much for the call. And everybody, remember, check out Stalin and his work on language and the materiality of nations. That is so good. You know, even Domenico Lucerdo, who he's really good. He has a little ultra leftiness to him, but that's okay. We'll forgive him. He called Stalin the premier theorist on the materiality of nations for a reason, because he was that good. We have a tendency to overlook Stalin as a theorist, but he was up there. I mean, no one's Lenin, right? No one is Marx, Engels, Lenin, Du Bois, but Stalin was up there. He was not just the guy that put Lenin's ideas into practice, which he was always very humble and made sure to call himself. All right, we're going to keep it moving. Who do we have next for us, Daniel?
Hey, we've got my Twitter comrade, Golden Parenti, my comrade in arms in the Twitter sphere.
That's what's up.
Yeah, big time. Golden Parenti wants to talk about community organizing and how they can get started with that.
Let's do it.
Hey, Noah.
What's up, brother? How are you?
What's up? Pretty good. Pretty good. You sound a lot better. I'm glad you're over the COVID.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, what do you got for us today? Community organizing stuff, huh?
Yeah, like I'm part of, or I guess joining a party, and like we're doing a lot of like I guess canvassing and stuff, which is great. Like I think it's pretty cool. Been meeting a lot of like different working class people and immigrants and all these different swaths of folks that are really painting a pretty good picture of like how things are going in my local area. But I'm missing like that component of actually like doing things, for the community, I guess. It was just wondering if you had like any advice on how I could maybe get started on that, and if it's not too much trouble, like find some way to balance the two.
Yeah, that's a great question, brother. I think here's one of my problems with all of the organizations of the last period of American history's left. What they seem to do is create for themselves a community out of abstraction that isn't sort of organic and formed on its own, right? And they go into other communities and do things like canvas, like hey, vote for me, that kind of stuff, right? And
Right.
I think that the American people see that. And I think don't nobody want someone they've never met coming here saying, give me your vote, I deserve it, I'm a good guy, right? I think for me that's crazy. Sorry. But I think you're onto something, because communists need to establish a connection with the communities we're already part of, right? If you haven't been like organizing within your neighborhood already, that's a daunting task, especially to come out and just say, hey, I'm a communist, right? Because we're taught to think people will go, oh, we want nothing to do with you, we hate you, etc. And I think one of the reasons some people may be inclined to do that is the organizations that go in from outside, like people owe them something, right? I don't know. That's just my opinion on it. But I think that going in, so depending on if you live in a big city, a small town, whatever, there's always going to be a city council. There's always going to be some sort of like community center. Look up where these are in your neighborhood. Look up when your city council meetings are. Look up what events your community centers are holding, right? One of the things that I find the most fulfillment, and I've been doing this for years, even before the founding of the new Communist Party, right? Is I just help with everything in my neighborhood. And it could be, one of the things I'm most proud of is we organized a prescription delivery service for old people during COVID, who, were being told they couldn't leave their houses. Another thing is we deliver Thanksgiving dinners to people below a certain income level, which is most of the people in my neighborhood. On Thanksgiving, we set up holiday events for the kids. There's like an Easter egg hunt for Easter. There's a haunted maze for Halloween, all kinds of cool stuff, right? That's what I like doing. And you can get involved with that just on your own right now. I guarantee, as one of the people that's always looking for volunteers for those sorts of things, they are always looking for volunteers, especially with the younger generation who seem not as interested in it as people of even the boomer generation were, to tell you the truth. I work alongside a lot of old people. Second, my biggest piece of advice for you is apply to join the American Communist Party. This is what we're doing. We intend to organically myth bust all of the myths about communists through rebuilding the connection with the communities we're already a part of that communists used to have back in the day. Right? It used to be that if you were getting evicted from your apartment, you called the party, and the party would show up after the sheriffs took all your stuff, put it out on the lawn. The party would show up and put that stuff right back in. That was what we did, right? And it was, and that's not everything we did, obviously. But this is why the Communist Party now is starting with community service brigades, right? Just organically showing people we're not a weird blue-haired college kid coming from outside the community trying to tell them what to do and what to think, right? That we are instead the people who care and are here to help. If they have something that's bothering them that they need done, we're the ones who get it done. Eventually, we want to be sort of, let's say there's a block party or a county fair. We want people who have issues to find that ACP tent, see that flag, and know that they can go to get their issue solved right there. So that's our goal. So my main advice would be apply to join the ACP.
Okay. Awesome. I appreciate it, Noah. Thanks.
My pleasure. If you can't dedicate, it's a lot. It's a big dedication. Don't get me wrong. It is. We ask a lot of you, but we give a lot in return. If you don't have time for that, like I said, check out your local community centers. Google will get your location even as you type whatever near me, right? Right. Check out community centers near you. Check out when your city council's meeting, and go and just begin learning about what issues your community is facing as a community. And that would be my advice if you can't join the party.
Okay. Sweet. I'll do that. Thanks.
My pleasure, brother. Anything else for us before you go?
Nah, I think that's it. And
awesome.
I guess I'll say I appreciate the work you guys are doing. And
thank you.
Keep it up.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad we could help. And this was one of the best calls of the night. So thank you for what you're doing here.
Appreciate it.
Look, everybody, I think that we can sort of go down rabbit holes of like I want to be the smartest Marxist around, and I want to be able to make anti-communists look stupid on the internet or whatever it is. What's really important, though, is building up those local relationships. That's how we get this done. Remember, the last period of history's left destroyed everything. We have to rebuild from scratch. And we do that only by focusing on what we can immediately change first, establishing relationships and connection, right? The guy who, goes and helps organize a bake sale for the PTA is just as important as the party theorist. Seriously. If not more so, frankly. Like anybody can do what I do. Just start reading obsessively like a nerd like me, right? Oh man. Thank you, Popers, for a gifted membership. Somebody snatch that up, man. Popers is amazing. Popers gives memberships like it's going out of style. For real. We love Popers here. All right. Let's keep it moving. We're at the hour and a half mark, so we don't got too much more time. Who do we have next, brother?
We've got Default on the line with us. They had some questions about tactics around voting in this upcoming election and blank ballots and things of that nature.
Awesome. What's up, Default? How you doing today?
What's up, Noah? Doing fine.
Excellent. It's excellent. Good to hear from you again. So yeah, voting tactics. What's going on?
So I know that a lot of people in ACP have been pushing the idea of not voting at all, not participating in the election at all as a sort of political act.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm wondering, what is the advantage of doing that over casting a blank ballot? Because from in my thinking, if you simply don't, show up on the polls, then your political act cannot be distinguished from somebody who is just simply apolitical, apathetic, and has checked out of politics.
It's a good question. I'll be honest. I'm one of the people that would argue for not voting. Here's the thing, and that's like if we have time. So these sort of things will be decided at the convention. But I would advocate a public campaign of not just the party not voting as a block, but actively campaigning against voting, of actively campaigning to make them earn our votes by actually getting something done. Right? Right now they're not. They both Trump and Kamala Harris feel entitled to our votes, and they should.
Yes.
Right? Both of them are responsible.
We even had a troll in the live chat, like trying to basically morally blackmail everybody there into voting for Kamala.
Unreal. It's like, how are you going to try to take a moral high ground about voting for someone who's like all in on genocide? That's insane to me. Sorry, World War III and genocide trump everything else. I don't care how morally superior you think you are. If you're for genocide, if you are for ramping up a war effort against a nuclear power, leading us towards nuclear Armageddon, you ain't morally superior to anything. That's insane. But I think that if we had a record low turnout for this specific election, it would really, really put a giant dent in the system. And I think that's one of the most tactical political acts we can make right now. And rather than, and I haven't really looked into it, I think your blank ballot idea is interesting.
Yeah, because the idea is that it will at least show up in the statistics.
Right.
Well, I guess not voters also show up, but at least we would know. Like if we told people to either cast a blank ballot or just write in some sort of protest slogan, like writing Gaza for president and vote for that, right? Like then we could get an idea of our strength and the effectiveness of our organizing.
Yeah.
Because it would show up in the records.
That's true. But here's my thing. If we cast blank ballots, one, it would give us a very good gauge of where our forces are and how good the campaign does. But if we instead campaign against voting, I wouldn't underestimate how appealing having to literally do nothing to participate is.
Yeah.
Honestly, like that's zero effort. You actually have to like expend effort not to do it. And it would also automatically count all the people who already aren't voting for whatever other reason, whether, they work that day or they are already jaded with the system, like most working class people, whatever it is. So I would lean towards just not voting, but I'm willing to be persuaded the other way if there were more positives than the not voting route.
On a related note, what do you think about this idea of kind of building a coalition with basically everybody who's not going to vote for the duopoly? So that includes the various third parties, just on this particular issue, because of how awful two candidates are. Is there any grounds for that?
It's tricky because the way I see it, we're just not there yet. We're in the early stages of rebuilding a progressive movement in this country. Like, we should be real about where we are. We're embryonic. I mean, the Communist Party was just reconstituted, and people are still in the old mode of the last period of history. I sort of break it up 2020 and before, right? And there are a lot of people that are voting Jill Stein, and that's fine, right? There are a lot of people that are voting for whatever the trot is, and whatever, that's fine too, I guess. But I see over the next few years, everybody that's serious about actually creating change in our country needing a more concrete coalition of forces to do things like not vote, right? Or throw all our support in one candidate in one election on another in another, depending on what state we're in, what election it is, that kind of thing. Right now, I mean, looking at it like this, right? We're good friends with the RBN guys at the Institute, right? I believe they're all into Jill Stein right now in the Green Party because they see that as a way to vote against the duopoly. Now, I could try to convince them that not voting as a block is a better idea, but people generally need to learn these lessons for themselves. I'm never like really a guy that goes and tells people what time it is. I more sort of put up a tutorial on how to make a watch, right? For anybody that needs to know what time it is, if that makes sense. And I just think we're just not at a stage yet where enough people have are ready to abandon the preconceptions we're taught are the avenues for change, right? So in our society, we have this sort of mainstream level, which is only Democrats or only Republicans. Directly beneath that on the onion is, well, if you don't like them, you like the Green Party or the Libertarian Party, right? These need to be revealed during a moment of crisis like we're entering as just not routes for change. And I think this election can do that. I don't get me wrong. Jill Stein says some great stuff. If I thought that voting were a good route to go, I would vote for her. And I don't blame anyone for wanting to vote for her. I just think we're just not yet in a period where we're formalizing coalitions and concretizing this thing into what it's going to become yet, where we can all do something that tactically coordinated.
Yeah.
What do you?
Yeah,
What do you think?
there might not be enough time for this election. It's only it's only a little bit more than a month away.
Exactly, and that's what I think it is. It's time, which is fine. And it's like I can't blame anybody for only working with the information they get, and it's the same reason I don't, freak out at my coworkers for following conservative media. That's all they get, right? It's my job to figure out a way to get everybody on board as a communist. And I think that's what we all should be in the process of doing now. And we should look at it with clear eyes and a realistic view of where we are. That's all.
Yeah, but we have this duopoly delusion that has gripped the masses has to be broken. Because I'm seeing people that used to be
yes.
I'm seeing people like Jimmy Dore that used to be pretty firmly in the vote independent camp, basically kind of slide towards like all but saying to support Trump, even though he'll outright say that Trump is the lesser of two evils, and it's like,
you know what? It's honestly, I think at this point Trump is the lesser of two evils, though I wouldn't vote for him. He's still not a solution. And I say he's the lesser of two evils for one small thing. There is a chance, however small, that he will try in some way to prevent nuclear war with Russia. Now, it's a small chance, but there is zero chance that Kamala Harris will do that. So if we think a lesser evil is a realistic way to think of it, Trump would be the lesser evil. I just don't think there's such a thing. And I think that's a bad framing for how we look at politics.
I think that Trump will, on the Ukraine issue, I think Trump is better, but I think with Israel and Iran, Trump is probably worse. And I think that, so it's like a trade-off. Like, okay, maybe Trump might be better on Ukraine, but then he makes up for it by being worse on Iran and on Israel. And that, if the U.S. gets involved in the Middle East, that's going to very easily lead to a hot war with Russia as well.
Exactly, it may all end in World War III.
Either way,
so
it's like basically the way I look at it. Trump and Kamala both accelerate us towards World War III. It's just that they take different paths to it. It's like we're all heading towards that cliff. It's just, you want to take one route, or one route through Ukraine, or the other route through Iran.
Right. It's a terrifying time, man. And it's what really drives me crazy and grinds my gears about the whole thing is the lack of focus on why. You know what I mean? People don't seem to care as much as I at least I think they should. The reason they're steadily marching us towards nuclear war is literally just the need to continually accumulate more and more. That's it. And it's terrifying to me that we're at this point and people want to talk about, yes, but Vladimir Putin is evil and blah, blah. Like, just shut
I also think that, like, if you look on social media, a lot of the propaganda, I see a lot of posts about how militarily weak Russia and China are.
Mhm.
So I think that kind of propaganda serves to trick the American people into thinking, oh, we don't have to worry about getting into like, who cares if we got into a war with Russia and China? We just kick their ass. Like, that's
Precisely. Which is crazy, by the way, because China has the best ground forces in the entire world right now while spending far less money than us. And Russia, again, is a nuclear power. Like, nukes are a trump card. And they have said that, and here's the thing, was it last week that they approved sending missiles to the Nazis in Ukraine in order to strike targets within Russia? Putin
to which
has
Russia
said
says,
that if
yeah,
that happens, they will
we'll strike.
respond by holding NATO responsible, which is absolutely 100% correct for him to do, just as it was correct for John Kennedy to say the same thing about the Soviet Union during the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? This is where we're at, a reverse Cuban Missile Crisis. But here's the thing, the Soviets were far, far in a weaker position geopolitically than Putin is with the Russian Federation right now, and less likely to strike first than Nazis in Ukraine, who literally want to eradicate Russians from the face of the earth. So it's a really, really terrifying time. And it's only that direct wanting to negotiate with Russia that makes me look at Trump as maybe slightly, maybe like an inch less evil than Kamala Harris. But you know what? Like you said, like, he's not better on anything else. So who needs him? Another servant of the banking elites. And the only way we're ever going to get change is doing it ourselves. And I think, and here's the good thing about our era, I think more and more people are coming to that conclusion. We're in this like weird neo-Nazi fad right now. But that can only last so long. People can't believe in that big of a ridiculous joke very long. It's just impossible, you know?
I think it's mostly online.
Yeah,
that is mostly online.
For sure, but I don't think we should ever underestimate how important social media is for how people develop their view.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, especially since I think that probably a lot of it, like, you know, the ACP itself kind of, it was built, it came from the internet, right? It came from social media. It was started by communities and, you know, groups that formed online. So like a lot of people who are falling for this far right stuff, this neo-Nazi stuff, if that wasn't there, they would probably end up in our camp.
They absolutely would, because, well, here's the thing, like, it's an easy excuse to maintain, and these are all people that began as like libertarians and other stuff. It allows them to maintain their identity as a rightist, which is really all it's about, while slowly seeing through the fact that Trump wasn't a solution. Libertarianism is incredibly flawed, just ideologically. And, you know, anarchism and liberalism aren't solutions. And so they go this next step, but it's going to occur to them, if they're in any way serious about actual problems, that this is insane, what they've fallen into, the minute they begin even wanting to prove us wrong. If they want to prove us wrong, they have to begin looking into the facts, which are on our side. So, I don't know. I see it
It's like
as
the last step, last ideological step to take before they finally come to us.
Precisely. I see that that you know, Nick Fuentes, if he's not completely astroturfed, has a very short lifespan. That's all. All right, you got anything else for us before we go on, Deepo?
No, that's all I have right now.
Awesome. Well, that was a great call. So thank you very much, brother. Always a pleasure talking to you.
All right, same.
Yeah, I think that if there is one thing that's important right now, it is avoiding nuclear war. I don't think there's anything more important than that in the world, right? And even short of nuclear war, just a new world war with the scale we're at right now, right? It's a scary time. I don't want my son is 14. I could easily see 4 years from now them going to war with Russia and him getting drafted and having to murder Russians that have far more in common with him than the people who sent him there. Right? I'm friends with quite a few veterans, and it's not healthy. It's not a good thing to know what's happening to you, especially when you begin figuring out how you're being used and why you're not allowed to fraternize with the enemy, because they always have more in common with you than the people telling you to go kill them. And that's incredibly sad. And all the respect in the world to veterans, and we don't have to get into it. Who do we have next, Daniel?
Hey Noah, we've got Johnny actually. Johnny from ACP up in our Canadian comrade land. Johnny, can you unmute yourself? I can see that your microphone is cool.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
It's going well. What's up, Johnny? How are you tonight?
I'm good. I'm glad to see that you're feeling better.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was touch and go for a minute there. That COVID came on. Oof, it hit me hard this time. Hard.
Yeah.
So what's up? What do you got for us tonight, brother?
Well, I kind of wanted to continue our discussion on DEI training from last time. It seems like last time we didn't really get enough time to talk about it since you had to attend to party business. So I just wanted to, I think I know, see, I think I wanted to talk about, where does DEI training come from exactly? And I think I've been doing a little bit of thinking, and I think I know why. So DEI training kind of stems from ruling class cosmopolitanism. It tells us to embrace our individual differences, but the reality is that neoliberalism doesn't actually respect the differences between given peoples, cultures, communities, and nations. It raises the individual status over the collective and actually breeds ethnic tensions and hatred. And I think that this bourgeois ideology abstracts away cultural differences without realizing that these differences exist in concrete communities and nations. The Soviets wrote all about the dangers of cosmopolitanism, the idea that individuals can just be global cosmopolitans and freely move around the world is what actually destroys communities and nations. They wrote about how cosmopolitanism is actually a cover for the financial elites to destroy communities and assert their dominance over the world. And I think that DEI training is just a way for the elites to instill their bourgeois ideology on the professional managerial class. So I
Yeah,
think
100%. You could
yeah,
not be more spot on, brother. I think that I would just so for me, my thinking always goes into, well, how did this develop, right? And it develops, believe it or not, out of white supremacy, right? Which was bourgeois cosmopolitanism of that time. It was the sort of immediate antagonism between peoples, because the way they view the categories that we call the universal and the particular are wrong and flawed. For them, everyone is a universal individual liberal unit, right? For us,
Yes.
instead, we are particularly constituted, right? But we are also at the same time universal, because for us, the universal isn't just that which is not particular. For us, the universal is that which arises in many particular forms. That's what makes it particular in the first place, right? And that's what makes it universal at the same time. For them, that's a contradiction, right? And so for them,
Yes.
we are all separate entities that can never truly understand each other. That's where intersectionalism comes from, right? That we're all these like antagonistic units. After the Civil Rights Revolution, overt white supremacy could no longer hold, but the ideological form that this divisive sort of cosmopolitanism takes doesn't just go away. It has to change into something with that material history now backing it. And so they, pay lip service to these people are oppressed and blah, blah, blah. But the effect is the same thing, just what you just said, right? It stokes racial divisions and it puts people against each other in a new way. It used to be all of these middle class white people saying, we're separate and different from black people because we're better. Now it's, we're separate and different from black people because, you guys used to get oppressed and we're sorry. And we're bad somehow inherently now, right? And that's all that's changed. It's the same essential content, ideologically speaking, but in this new modern
Yes.
form.
I think Zizek, although Zizek is kind of a NATO shill nowadays, I think that he would agree with your he would agree with what you're saying about the part where like nowadays white liberals, they kind of use the fact that they're sorry for oppressing minorities to actually, assert their dominance, so
Yeah.
so to speak.
It's
So
there's a German philosopher who teaches at the University of Peking in China that I really like. He's actually a big influence on us at the Institute. His name's Hans Georg Muller. You should check him out. He has a concept he calls prophilicity, and it's how people sort of begin to build their identities. But he sort of goes. He has a really good video on YouTube about wokeism and where he believes it comes from. Now I add the historical materialist element here, but for him, this is all sort of oh god, I just blanked on where I was going. What did you just say last?
I think I brought up Zizek.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. Okay. So
yeah,
he has this concept that he says he sees in the German people that he calls guilt pride. And they have a word for this, right? That because the Holocaust, the Nazi Holocaust was so terrible that they can only feel guilt from it. But this strips them of all pride. And therefore, in order for some positivity to remain, they begin taking pride in that guilt. And that's like people like, the lady that wrote White Fragility and all that other nonsense, right? That everybody is actually racist, which is silly. But that's what they're experiencing is this guilt pride, right? This pride in their
yeah,
white guilt, that if they can be the most guilty, then they're the wokest and the coolest. And frankly, the entire left in the last period of history falls for this hook, line, and sinker. It's why they easily go along with the military industrial complex, with marching down the street in fetish gear and all that other
yeah,
craziness, right? Because they can say that, well, these people were oppressed. We must feel guilty about oppression. And if I'm the coolest and side the most, then I am therefore the one who can feel pride. And it's this really
it's like
roundabout
getting
thing.
it's like getting the most ally points, I guess you could say.
Yes.
Ally points.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And you know, with the trial of the Uhuru 3, the show trial of the Uhuru 3 having just happened, Omali Yushatila, who is one of the guys on trial, that which a railroad scam of a trial, as Bryce says, peak
yeah.
bozo activity, absolutely. That he said he had an interview with Tucker Carlson where he called these people the white people that love us. And I think that's a great way for a you know, black nationalist group to put it.
Yeah.
Complete
Who did he
bozos.
call?
They're all
Who did he
bozos.
call? Who did he call the white people who love us?
Yeah. Like all the
The
like guilt pride liberals, he said they're the white
Oh,
people who
okay.
love us, right? Because they're always
I thought he
telling
was
them how much they
yeah.
love them.
Yeah.
Not like,
It's just
you know,
wild.
hey, we have the same enemy. We are both involved in class struggle. Let's do it together. It's no, we feel bad for you. It's paternalistic white savior, white man's burden racism, the same as it
It's
always
yeah.
was. It just has this new woke veneer to it, you know?
Yeah, there's like the white liberal racism and then there's like the edgelord Groyper racism,
Yes,
I guess,
exactly.
saying the N-word 100 times and making fun of Indians and stuff like that.
Right. And it's so
But
silly, like, because they think what they're doing is like shocking people. I'm saying what you're not allowed to say. And really,
yeah,
I just feel bad because they're that pathetic that that's how they try to like uh feel validated in some way, right? Like you gotta be in a dark, like very
but
pathetic
yeah,
place to do that. By the way, let me
but
interrupt
I
you real
yeah.
quick. Hey, the old turds. It's a call-in show. Stop whining in my chat and call in if you have a problem. Call in or you get banned. That's all you got. Nothing
VC or
else at this
ban.
point. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Johnny.
No, that's all right. Sometimes you got to deal with these hecklers.
No kidding.
Um, I think it's another thing is that it's kind of telling how a guy like Nick Fuentes has more solidarity with white liberals than he does with like other groups of people, you know. But I guess when you kind of like describe and articulate exactly why white liberals are racist, it's not entirely surprising. I think that white liberals, I think they only kind of just disagree with Groypers on the form of the racism. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. And they don't see themselves as racist. Like even Fuentes would say he's not a hateful person, right? He just thinks they should all blah blah blah, blah whatever, right?
Yeah, mass
But he
deportation and shit like that.
exactly. Uh yeah, I don't know, man. It's all racism all the way down. All right, you had your chance, old guy. You're getting banned. All right, he's banned.
Based.
I'm done. I'm done being patient with these people. At this point, what's the line? Voice chat or ban? That's where we're at.
VC or ban.
VC or ban.
That's what like the people in infrared would say all the time. Whenever there's like a heckler in the Discord server, you just say VC or ban, but like 9 times out of 10 they're too scared.
They're always too scared. It's crazy. Like it's a call-in show. If you're such a big man, call in and actually have a conversation. They never do. They're
Yeah,
always scared. It's pathetic.
yeah,
Anyway, you got
exactly.
anything else for us? Because we're running up against it on time, and
Yeah, I think I think I have enough. Uh, yeah, I think if there's more callers, then
cool. Yeah, I think we got one or two more behind you, and we're already we're going overtime tonight. Oh well, it's our
okay, okay.
return show. So what are you gonna do? But yeah, thank you so much for your call, brother. That was a great one. I think we really always need to pay attention to the reactionary nature of wokeism. I really do. And all of these sort of anti-communist liberals who run around acting as if they're like morally superior in some way. Really, it's just kind of unpacked racism a lot of the time. It just is. I don't know. A lot of the time, I feel like it's a middle class concern, right? For people that don't have a daily struggle and aren't worried about how they're going to pay rent this month, or if that next paycheck is going to not come and they'll get kicked out of their house or whatever. It's people who have the stability to rest on pretending they're morally superior to everyone else. I like to say, for these people that think they're communists, you know what I mean, who I'm talking about, right? They have like the thing that's trying to be a communist in them, and they also have a liberal in them. But that middle class nature that makes up who they are always makes the liberal stand in front every single time it matters. Oh man, Johnny Boy with the $5. Thank you so much. Johnny Boy says the author of White Fragility has been accused of serial plagiarizing Black authors for her doctoral thesis. The evidence looks pretty damning. I am not surprised. She is incredibly stupid. Number one, primo uno bozo, that lady. She is a bozo and a half. Not many bozos bigger than that bozo. Who do we got next, Daniel? It better not be a bozo. We are a bozo-free show tonight.
No bozos. It's a bozo-free zone. Bozo-free zone. We ban bozos.
We ban bozos. That's a new slogan. We ban
bozos.
bozos.
ACP slogan, the new Midwestern Mark slogan. We've got Zatarkos on the line, actually. Zatarkos has called in a few times. They are doing their due diligence on ACP and American communist history. So they have some research questions that they'd like to go over with you.
Sounds good. Zatarkos, what's up, brother? We got to keep it kind of short tonight because we're already over time. So give me the best question you got and let's get to it.
No problem. Sounds good. In light of recent events, one thing that has come up, I think, is the idea of political violence.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see political violence and attempted assassinations, things like direct actions, violent revolutions, violent protest or sabotage, to terrorism included. That's another form. So, but I'm not limiting it to just that. What is ACP's stance on any form of political violence in attaining the ends of the ACP?
It's a good question. Our view of violence is that is basically the American view. The only violence that is ethically acceptable is defensive violence. So someone's robbing your house, someone attacks you, someone attacks your family, etc. And it's worth pointing out that throughout history, communist revolutions have not been violent until the violence came for them. It was only when things got to a point where they were attacked that they fought back. The Bolsheviks, for example, I forget the guy's name. It's like a legendary Cossack, like brutal commander that was marching on them in order to instill a military dictatorship within Russia, right? And one of the reasons the Bolsheviks were able to maintain, even take power, was because they were who were organizing the Soviets, the workers' councils, between each other and maintained a defense against this attack. The Chinese, for example, their revolution began kicking out the Japanese, right, who were occupying China. And so in Cuba, it's the same thing. right? The Batista regime was mass murdering people and keeping slaves. It's always been the ruling elites coming for us and us defending ourselves. And in the great spirit of Americanism, we hold that that is the proper and morally correct view, that we do not want a fight. We will not start a fight. But if you bring a fight to our doorstep, be damn sure we will finish it. And that is how I live my life, not just in regards to violence, but in regards to political battles, right? I always want peace. I want everybody to work together because that's how we get things done. But if you bring me a fight, I'm gonna finish it. Now, you mentioned protests and them turning into riots. This happens, right? I think that this is not a way for change to happen. While I can understand people's frustration, all it does, though, is play into the hands of the ruling class and allow them to paint us as petty criminals and thugs. The same goes for looting and that kind of thing. There's a reason they send agent provocateurs into crowds in order to egg on the violence. January 6th is a great example. Who was egging on people to be violent? Well, it was the FBI snitches, wasn't it? That it were in the leadership of people like the Proud Boys, right? That later on, you all found out they were snitches the whole time. So we need to be wary of stuff like that. There's a reason that Lenin and the Bolsheviks condemned what the anarchists used to call propaganda of the deed, right? Because it didn't get anything accomplished. All it created was more crackdowns on the progressive forces. This guy, Tripe 2004, says, adventurism gets communists killed. Absolutely. We are not adventurous, not even remotely close. Does that answer your question, brother?
Yeah, definitely. I think you went pretty fully into it. And just to put a little finer point on it, defensive action can sometimes be pretty widely interpreted. For instance, preemptive action. Do you have a little bit more to say about that? And I think you probably answered the protest question about a group like Antifa, but preemptive action, I think, is one part of defensive that I'm trying to understand.
I've heard that it's a lot of that kind of stuff comes down to context. What is a preemptive action, right? What is a reactive action? We get painted by the elites in ways that we don't act all the time. If there's one subject in the world that is lied about more than anything, it's communists. I mean, that's just the truth. And I think that one of the narratives is, look, they'll do anything. They don't care. They'll kill. No, that's crazy. We're sensible people who do this because we want peace. We want to avoid war. We want to make people's conditions better. And so when they paint us with that brush, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I can't imagine a concrete situation where the American Communist Party would ever condone something like using that as some kind of excuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a great answer. Thank you for that.
My pleasure, brother. I'm sorry to cut you short today. I know you usually have great questions, but we're already over time. So with that, we're going to call it a night. Thank you to all of our callers tonight. Y'all were awesome. Thank you to the best producer in the business, Daniel Gutierrez. We're going to go out the same way that we always do. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in the song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Let no one build walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. Come greet the dawn and stand beside us. We'll live together or we'll die alone. In our world poisoned by exploitation, those who have taken, now they must give. And end the vanity of nations. We've but one earth on which to live. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in the song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. And so begins the final drama, in the streets and in the fields. We stand unbowed before their armor, we defy their guns and shields. When we fight, provoked by their aggression, let us be inspired by life and love. For though they offer us concessions, change will not come from above. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle